Hi there, I'm Jonathan Parker from Parker Adams Boat Sales, and we're here today at Hamble Point Marina because I want to show you quite a simple job, but it's a job that a lot of people are scared of, and it's changing the oil in an IPS drive. We're doing it on a Fairline Targa 44, it's a 2009 boat, and it's got the IPS 600, so the 435 horsepower engines. This boat has had a few videos done on it already. We've actually we've got a video out there already, but showing the hull polish on here. By a company called South Coast Yacht Care, and Dave, he actually did a stage-by-stage hull polish on this because the blue had bloomed quite a bit, and it's returned it back to what you can see now. Also, another quick video as well is that we've just had these zip wakes fitted, and we're going to be doing some testing on these and a full tour on these as well, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to see all the other videos we have, all the walkthrough tours we have. But today we're going to show you how to change the oil on these. Very simple job, but a lot of people are very scared of it. But the first thing we need to do is drain the oil out. So what I've set up here, these IPS drives take 14 litres of oil, so you need somewhere to put it. So I've got an oil drain pan, so the oil will drain out of here into here, but this capacity is not enough, so I've also got it then draining into here. So I've already done one. So it's about half full at the moment, so we'll get this one drained. And it's a very simple job. Down inside here there's an anode, and just below the anode there's a round bolt with a hexagonal head. That's a 12mm Allen key head, so your biggest challenge is getting a Allen key head that will fit all the way down to there. A normal Allen key won't do it, you have to use it on a socket and a wrench. So I'm going to pop it all the way down. The first tip I'll tell you is once you get it in, there's quite a lot of scale and things on it, so tap it all the way home so it's all the way in. Otherwise you may risk rounding off the Allen key head if it's not all the way in, because they can be quite tight. So literally going to get it undone. Just going to move that out of the way, and quite firm these will be. There we go, that's got loose. They will give straight away once they go, but they'll be tight to start with, so just be aware. And then we'll unscrew it. And the oil is coming out. Now, this is the initial part where you need to check the oil quality. Any water, debris, any sort of contamination in the oil will show straight away because it will all sink to the bottom and it will be at the bottom. On the end here is also magnetic, and you can see there's no swarf or anything on the end of here, so it's a really good indication that the IPS drives are in good shape. These have been in here for a whole year, this oil, and you can see it's coming out very, very clean. There's no emulsification, there's no debris in there, and it's showing that the IPS drives are in good health. There is an O-ring here. We will be replacing that, but we're going to have to wait for the 14 litres of oil to come out. I've undone this bung, but to aid the oil, we don't do it initially because we don't want a big splurge of oil coming out, but to aid the oil coming out, we now loosen the oil cap on the IPS drive itself. So we'll pop on the boat and we'll do that now, and I'll show you what to do. Okay, here we are at the back of the engine and where the IPS unit is. And if you do have an IPS unit, you'll know because you would have checked the oils umpteen times because you're always stressed about oil contamination in IPS. If you've never checked it before, there is actually a dipstick in the back of the IPS unit. Let me just show you where that is. If you go all the way to the back, it is here. And you simply unscrew it. You can hear the suction of air, and that's because the oil is escaping out the bottom, and there's a dipstick there. So that's how you check your oil. If I just pass you back to there, to Nick there, who's doing the filming today. The dipstick shows two marks. There's a maximum and then a minimum. And what you do is once it's unscrewed, you pop it back in without screwing it in, and then lift it out, and your oil level should be on the maximum. There's half a litre difference in oil from minimum to maximum. So if you're minimum, half a litre of oil. If you're somewhere in between, you probably don't need to worry about topping it up until it gets to the minimum, and then half a litre. What you don't want to do is overfill it. So it's very important not to overfill, and using the correct oil as well. I'm just going to place this back in the hole, because that isn't where you fill it up. Once you do an oil change, you actually fill it from the oil fill cap here. I leave the dipstick loose, so when you do fill up, there's somewhere for the air to escape. With gearboxes and engines as well, where you fill it up, it has to get past all the gear sets, it has to get past all the clutches, so the oil takes a bit of time to get to the bottom and the level to get to the correct level. And anything you can aid to actually for the air to escape, which is what is trying to replace with the oil, is good. And leaving the dipstick loose will allow air to escape out the back of the gearbox as you put it in this end. So on here though, there is an oil filter as well, and it is just a small oil filter. And we can change this now while the oil is draining. There will be some oil in here captured, so we need to protect the area underneath the oil filter, and we'll use some rag to do that. I've got some paper towel to hand. So paper towel's always a good friend. What I've got here to set myself up, tool wise, all I really need is a funnel to help put the oil in, and a wrench or an oil filter strap to undo the oil filter. And that's all the tools you really need on the inside. So again, very simple. We need to use though the correct oil. Now Volvo do the IPS and Aquamatic synthetic transmission oil. It's very important you put the correct oil in. I don't know an alternative, so I always go for the safe bet and just go for the Volvo Penta recommended oil. And it is the IPS and Aquamatic synthetic transmission oil. The oil capacity, believe it or not, is 14 litres. So 14 litres of oil, which I think I said downstairs. So when you put it, so you need to make sure you've got enough oil to do it. Using the 5 litre containers is very handy because they're very mobile and they have spouts so you can help pour them in. You can get 20 litre containers, but I'd recommend not, because it makes it very difficult to get the oil into the IPS unit. You have to then decant it into smaller containers, whereas you don't need to if you get those. For ease of use, go for the 5 litres. So I'm just going to go now with the oil filter. I'm going to protect the area around, so I'm going to put paper towel underneath. Oil will always come out of here, so it's kind of, once you get it loose, it's then a quick process. These should be hand tight, but generally they always aren't. So ideally I'd use an oil filter strap, but it happens that I don't have it with me today. So all I'm going to do is use a wrench and a bit of pressure on the filter. You see, you can hear how tight it is. We'll come around and do that again. A lot of pressure on the wrench, and then we get it hand tight, which is where it should be. And at this point we need to set up with a container to put it straight into, which is the bucket, and another bit of rag, just using an oily bit already, and I'll very quickly whip it off. And as soon as it comes off, hold it upright like that, and you can see the oil that's coming out. So we'll leave the rag there, and then pop this in the bucket, pop that down, get a bit more rag, and then we just clean around underneath. The idea of the oil change is to get as much of the oil out as possible, so we'll let it drain out a bit. We get your new oil filter, and just make sure the seal is in place. And what we do, a little bit of the old oil if it's still clean. If it has emulsified or anything like that, you don't do this. Use fresh oil just around the lip of the oil seal, and that just allows you to put the filter on tighter, because you don't use a wrench to do it up, to make sure there's nothing in the way of the seal. And we'll then screw it back on. So get it on to the point where it's just nipped. That'll stop any more oil coming out, and then we'll clear the majority of the oil away. So we'll then get got a cloth here, and then we'll use that to aid us to tighten it up at least another half, 3/4 of a turn. It does say half a turn on the filter, but always, when you're doing things up hand tight, I always quite like to do them up pretty much as tight as I can by hand. Everyone's hand grip is different, so if you do it up as tight as you can, then that'll be enough. What I'd always recommend with these filters is once the engine's warmed up, just pop back down here and recheck the tightness of the filter. Once you have run the engine initially, recheck the oil level as well, because the oil level will drop slightly due to the fact the oil filter will fill with oil as well. Which is probably about, it looks like probably just about 1/4 of a litre of oil, something like that. So we just need to allow for that. So you have to recheck the oil, top up, so leave some oil in here, top up with oil, and that's you kind of done. But let's go back down below now and see how we're getting on with the oil draining. Right, as you can see, the oil has fully drained now. There's no more drips coming from it. The drip is actually from the rain that's just come down, so I'm getting dripped on, hence why I've got my coat on now, but hopefully we'll get this bit done quick. You can see my little contraption of the oil running into here's worked well, so this is now filled up, and you can see that this would have filled up and overflowed otherwise, so always make sure you've got enough capacity and somewhere to put it. And what we're going to do quickly is there's a green rubber O-ring. It's always worth changing, even if it looks okay. And we just nip that off with a pair of pliers. Like so. We'll give it a clean, just make sure there's no debris. Also, just make sure that this tool goes in loosely. And the reason for that is, what you don't want is the tool to get stuck in here once you've done it up tight, because it's right down there, it'll be really hard to get it out. So give it a bit of a clean. Give the tool a clean, so then it will be nice and loose, as you can see. Give it a second wipe round, and get your new seal, and then pop it over, and just slide it down all the way to the bottom, like so, and then we'll pop it in. There is a bit of oil around the hole, so as it goes in tight, it'll compress onto here, and just put a bit of lubricant on there, and of course it'll be very loose until you get to the very end, and then you just nip it up and then just nip again. So I'm going to put it all the way in. Just be very sure it's on the thread nice, and then wind it all the way in by hand, and then just like that, and then just a little, and that's enough. Okay, the O-ring should do all the work for us, and then what we'll do, we'll just use a bit of old rag here. Don't have to be clean rag for this job, because we're just going to take out as much oil that's sat in the bottom of here as we can. Don't be surprised when you first launch the boat that you get a bit of oil in the water, because of the way the oil drains off of here. There's this gully all the way along, there's always a bit of oil that is hard to get out. You could wash this out fully if you wanted to, but normally a good wipe will leave very little, and if you don't wipe it, you'll see probably quite a lot of water in there. But you can see it's pretty good, so you'll just maybe see a bit of a residue. That's that. So now I think we'll pop back up and we'll show you how to top it up. Right, so all we need to do now is top it up. So I've got a nice little funnel which fits just into there, and then we need to open up. If you've never opened an oil can before, then it's quite nice because they have a built-in spout. You can see, so a little cap undoes, and then there's a little bit in here. Sometimes these lugs break, but that should come off like that. And now we've got a clear sort of spout, we can see the oil coming out. And what I always advise, actually, is a good tip, is do it sideways. If you do it that way, it tends to glug quite a lot, because the oil sort of sits up here and the air sort of can't escape. If you do it sideways, you see it comes a lot smoother. And you want to try and stop it glugging. So if I do it too much, it almost slows it down. So you can squeeze it, but you need to be patient with the oil because we don't want to fill it up too quick because we don't want it to come and overflow. So we do have to be patient, and I do have 2 of these and then another 3 or 4 litres to put in. So rather than put you through all that, let's take, I'll come back to me once I'm nearly done. Right, so now I've put 2 full containers in, and I've now put another 2 litres out of this one in. So now this is the time where you've got to be really careful, because this should take 14 litres, I've already said, but there's always some left in the IPS, so you'll probably find it might take a little bit less than 14. So once you get to 12, you really need to start monitoring the dipstick level. So I've put 12 in, and if we look on the dipstick now, there's still not showing. Okay, so it's not showing at all. And remember, you don't screw it back in when you check the level, you just push it in and pull it out. So I'm going to put in another half a litre. Just bearing in mind that minimum to maximum is half a litre. And we're just getting to a point really so we can start seeing it on the dipstick, which we're not doing yet. Just check again. Always try and give it a bit of time to drop down, because it will still take a bit of time to get to the oil level to settle. Okay, so I'm at probably 12.5 litres. I'll just put a little bit more in. So it's the overfilling which is a pain, because if you overfill it, it's not so easy to get it out. So this is why it's pretty crucial. Okay, let's dip it. Okay, so now we've actually put it in, and it is slightly above the maximum. So like I said, you can go, you can get it wrong very quickly. So I went from nothing to above maximum. Now this will probably be fine, because as I said, so it's just the level is actually here. It goes to here. That's maximum, that's minimum. This is half a litre between, so up to here is probably about less than 1/4 of a litre. Now the oil filter will take that, so what you'll probably find as soon as the engine runs, that will then drop to that max level. So I'm happy with the fact it's slightly over. Let me just double check it again, make sure it's not gone up. Yeah, it was still exactly the same place. So I believe once the engine runs, then that will drop itself back down, because it has to fill the oil filter. So I'm happy with that level. Right, so let's take this back out. And we need to put the oil cap back on, which is up here. Thank you. And that is the IPS oil change. So if you've enjoyed this video, come and see the others, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. But for now, I think that is it, and hopefully see you on the next video. Thank you.